Good morning, Year 9. Welcome to musictheory.net. This is a location that you are going to find to be quite useful. You'll be coming here for a number of your theoretical lessons. These are lessons I would normally deliver in class, but I'm going to deliver them through this app. So, an interval measures the distance between two notes. We're going to talk about what's called generic intervals, which are measured on the staff. So, you'll see what I mean. When two notes occupy the same line or the same space, they are what we call a unison. Right, so if there's one next to each other, then that's what we call a unison. This computer calls it a first. These are also unisons. Accidentals are ignored when you deal with generic intervals. Right, only the position on the stave actually matters. So for example, a C to a C sharp, a D to a D flat, and an A sharp or an A flat, they all sit in the same spot. The difference is that there's an accidental attached to the note, which tells us it's slightly different. As the notes become further apart, the interval type increases. So this is a second. So you can see that that is C, and we move to D. So there's two notes, C and D. So that is what we call an interval of a second. When we start jumping from line to line or space to space, then we start getting a third. So that's C, we missed D, and this is E. So this is an interval of a third. And you can always tell them because they're line, line, or space, space. So they're like two little eggs sitting on top of each other. We call them ice cream cones. So if you were to put an ice cream cone underneath, they would be ice cream cone type things. So these are generic intervals. So that's a generic third. These guys are fourths, and a fourth is the same picture. It has a line and then it has a space note. So it's not a line and a space next door. It's a line and there's a line between them and there's a space note. Or it's a space note and there's a space between it and there's a line note. So it always has the same look. The distance between the notes, this is classified as a fourth. This one is a fifth, where you've got a line note and a line note and there's a line between, or a space note and a space note and there's a space between. Sixths have, on a line note, have two lines between, and on a space note have two spaces between. So if you were to count, you would go D would be 1, E 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's how you count your generic intervals. This is number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see that it's the first line note and the fourth line note, or the first space and the fourth space. So seventh always has two spaces or two lines between it. And then the 8 or the octave is of course C and C, D and D. So that would be our octave. So these are intervals that you are going to now do a small test on. Hopefully you'll be able to remember. So if you're not sure, pardon me, here's a chart that I will take a snapshot of to help you remember what the intervals are. Remember, this is a unison. A second, that's a squish. They sit next to each other. Thirds always look like two little ice cream cones. A fourth has a space between. A fifth has a whole line between and a space. The sixth, the seventh, and the eighth. Remember, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're counting the spaces and lines between the generic intervals.